Vikings, let's win the game.
Vikings fans, Minnesota's situation feels like a pressure cooker with the lid rattling right now. Here's the deal. January is pounding on our head coach's front door again. Our young quarterback is taking heat and even got slapped with a fine. There's a legit trade rumor about an athletic quarterback that's got everybody buzzing. A coach on the staff is getting tapped for a bigger job. And by the end, we're staring at a horror movie setup where a rival could come swinging a wrecking ball at this defense. Before we crack open every layer of this like a fresh can of chaos, do me a favor real quick. Hit that follow, drop a comment on which position you think the Vikings have to chase in the draft, and jump into the conversation with us. I want your voice in here. All right, let's roll. January is the kind of month that sits in your chest like a cinder block, and you know exactly why. You grind through a season, stack hard wins, and then the playoffs show up and suddenly the whole vibe flips like a light switch. That's where Kevin O'Connell gets parked right in the crosshairs. He brought stability and a looser, better energy to the locker room after the hangover at the end of Mike Zimmer with Rick Spielman, and nobody can erase that. But here's the splinter under the nail. The playoff win still hasn't happened. And with the NFC North speeding up like a race car, that becomes instant ammunition. After the Chicago Bears came back on the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round, one ugly stat started echoing louder. O'Connell is the only head coach in the division without a playoff win. Dan Campbell already has postseason wins. Matt LaFleur does too. And yeah, the O'Connell-era numbers look shiny. A winning record of 43-27, over 60%. But fans don't frame percentages like trophies. Fans remember what it felt like when the clock hit 0 in January. And it's been 2 first-round exits since 2022. That's when the pressure starts clinging like wet paint, because the recent Vikings past has that scar. Then comes the most fragile piece of glass in the whole room. Quarterback. Same storyline, different jersey. Back then, after Case Keenum took this team far, the franchise went hunting for a name to lift the offense, and Kirk Cousins arrived. There were good moments, sure, but there was also that sense the ceiling was too low. While that debate kept burning, the roster aged, the draft didn't fix it, and the end result was a regime change. With O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the team flipped the page, moved on from Cousins, tried to find value, and the plan became building around J.J. McCarthy. Sam Darnold was part of the story. There was a bet, there was risk, and risk in Minnesota always charges interest. Now, with the season shaky and the offense swinging up and down, the big question is sitting there like a blinking warning light. Is it McCarthy? No debate? Or does a veteran show up to compete and smash the emergency button? I'm not going to act like this is clean or easy. Bring in a veteran and you buy time, maybe stack some short-term wins, but you might also clog the kid's growth. Hand the keys fully to the young guy and you accept the bumps, and sometimes you pay with an ugly loss, and then fan patience evaporates like water on a hot skillet. O'Connell knows it. The locker room knows it. The front office knows if 2026 turns into another year where games don't matter by December, the whole conversation shifts into a new lane. And here's the kind of bleachers level red you do not get just anywhere. Tell me in the comments, are you going into 2026 with McCarthy as the guy, or do you want real competition in that room? Stick with me because the next part isn't just quarterback talk, it's mindset, body language, and a fine that hits the wallet. Sometimes the scoreboard smiles, but the little moments still stab you in the ribs. The Vikings beat the Packers, yes, but inside that win, there was one sequence that had people doing the head tilt in confusion. Not because of the run itself, but because of what followed it. The NFL fined J.J. McCarthy $11,593 for unsportsmanlike conduct. He taunted Packers cornerback Keisean Nixon in the first quarter. McCarthy lowered his shoulder, got 6 yards, and then decided to jaw. And the ugly twist is Green Bay already had its playoff situation handled. They even had rotational guys out there, which makes the whole thing look worse twice over. The penalty backed Minnesota up, turning what should have been a manageable second down into a long yardage ditch. A drive that looked like it could end in a touchdown finished as a field goal. That stings because it's maturity stuff, and maturity stuff costs the same whether it's January or September. It's like paying the same toll no matter which road you take. I love that the kid plays with fire, I really do, but there are moments where you have to shut off, look at me, and flip on close the game. O'Connell had already told him to just be himself. No character, no theatrics. There was that phase with the nickname 9, and then the rough stretch hit. Interceptions, a concussion, a lot of hits. The season felt like that the whole time. 1 step forward, then 2 steps with a banged-up foot, like trying to run uphill in sand. And then came the other piece that turned into radio and bar talk. After the game, McCarthy sat down, put a towel over his hand, and hid it behind his back. That image landed poorly. Ben Lieber went at it and said it looked theatrical, like it wasn't necessary. And honestly, I can see both sides. Pain in the throwing hand is no joke, but quarterback is a spotlight position. Your body language turns into billboard headlines. Fans read everything. The outside stuff keeps sticking to him. He already had an ankle sprain, a rushed return, and even a small fracture in the hand later in the year. There were games where he left because of pain, and games where he stayed, and every week it feels like we're rolling dice on which version shows up, the talented spark plug or the rushed version that hands the rival free ammo. That's why the fine matters more than the money. It becomes a tag stuck on his jersey. Still green, still needs to grow up. But the NFL clock doesn't pause, and the new league year is coming soon. If Minnesota brings competition into the quarterback room, the noise gets louder. And if they don't, all the weight drops on his shoulders. Then every gesture turns into a headline. Now stay with me. If the front office really goes looking for an athletic challenger, there's a name that's already been connected to the Vikings, and that's exactly where we're going next. The second trade chatter starts swirling. My brain lights up like a warning siren, because usually there's at least a spark behind it. And when that spark hits the Vikings, it turns into the kind of debate that splits a whole bar right down the middle. The name popping up is Anthony Richardson. The basic idea is this: the Colts could be willing to move him before 2026, and the truth is his career turned into a roller coaster way too fast. In 2025, Indianapolis brought in competition. They brought in Daniel Jones, and Richardson ended up on the bench early. For a guy drafted 4th overall, that's a punch right in the gut. And it didn't stop there. He had that bizarre practice accident where the resistance band snapped back and hit his eye, causing an orbital fracture. Then when Jones tore his Achilles, Richardson was still sidelined, so he didn't even get the chance to redeem himself when the team needed him. The season rolled by and left one big question hanging like a loose wire. Do the Colts truly still believe in him, or is it about to turn into, let's see what we can get in a trade? So why does Minnesota get dragged into this? Because there's a detail that messes with your head. Back in 2024, after a game against the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell had a conversation with Richardson, and those encouragement words, "You are a bad dude and you are going to play a long time," have popped back up everywhere. That's not random. O'Connell is that kind of coach. He connects with players on the human side, and when he believes in someone, he shows it. But we can't get dreamy about it. Richardson is raw talent, big arm, real athlete, and he also comes with an injury history and inconsistency. And Minnesota is already living the quarterback development drama. So the question becomes, does it make any sense to bring another high-volatility project into the same locker room, like tossing another lit match into a room full of fumes? If the conversation is cheap competition with a high ceiling, I understand the logic. The piece even talks about a low-cost draft pick and a rookie deal that is nearing the end, and that's the kind of bet Kwesi likes to study. You're not handing over the entire future, you're buying a possibility. But there's another side. A quarterback like that needs a plan, patience, and a line and scheme that protect him. And this fan base in purple and gold can't live on maybe anymore. We want direction, a path, not a new quarterback room soap opera every day. And here's the bleachers level read you do not get from a team release. If the Vikings bring in a guy like Richardson, it's a signal that nobody's comfortable. Not the starter, not the staff. Tell me in the comments. Would you take that swing on Richardson, or do you think it's guaranteed headaches? Stay with me because the next story hits a different piece of the puzzle. And if it happens, it can rip a hole in the staff at the worst possible moment. A lot of what wins games never shows up on a highlight reel. It's like the bolts under the hood that keep the engine from shaking apart. And one of those bolts is continuity on the coaching staff. But the NFL works like this. When your unit starts sizzling, other teams show up with fishing nets trying to steal what's on your plate. And now the target might not be just Brian Flores. The coach getting promotion interviews is Durante Jones, the defensive passing game coordinator who works directly with the defensive backs. And here's the sign flashing in neon. Teams are requesting to talk to him about becoming a defensive coordinator somewhere else. This isn't some casual, hey, what's up call, this is a door cracking open. The first big push came from Dallas. The Cowboys finished with a defense near the bottom, and they're hunting for someone who can clean up the mess. And their interview list includes Jones. That's not small, especially because Dallas has been chasing candidates with huge resumes. Now they seem more willing to gamble on someone with hands-on work building a modern defense. And it didn't stop there. The New York Jets also requested an interview. The Jets are desperate for a defensive identity. Their defense was bad in 2025, so they look at Minnesota and see a group that finished at the top in efficiency again, and then they start tugging. What makes me uneasy is the timing. If Jones leaves, you mess with the defense's gears while everything's still turning. The Vikings' defense became a source of pride. It became defend the North in real life, and you don't get that like it's a magic trick. There's method, teaching, and accountability in every coverage detail. If you yank the guy handling the passing game, you can change the fine-tuning, the communication, even shake the defensive back's confidence, like pulling a card from the middle of a stacked deck. Honestly, it's fair he's getting recognized. If he's doing good work, he deserves a shot. But I can't ignore what it might do to us, because we all know how this goes. You lose an important assistant, you start patching, and then the patch becomes the soft spot, and your rival attacks it without mercy. And there's another layer too. When teams start hiring from your staff, it means the league respects what the Vikings are building. That's good, and it's dangerous. You can turn into a farm system for other teams and lose your own stability. I want your take. If Durante Jones leaves, does the defense keep its level, or do we feel it immediately? Now brace yourself, because the next one is the heaviest thing today. It's not just losing someone, it's the kind of loss that can twist into a nightmare, especially because of who might be calling. There are rumors that hit you like stepping into an ice bath. Instant shock, instant dread. Because it's not just about losing a good coach, it's about losing him to the wrong colors. And yes, I'm talking about Brian Flores. The nightmare possibility floating around is this very specific mess. Flores leaving Minnesota, and in some twisted scenario ending up in Green Bay. Just saying that out loud makes my blood boil, and I know it's not certain. There are a lot of steps between now and that, but even a tiny crack in the door is enough to send fans into a spiral. The backdrop is Packers playoff chaos. They lost to the Bears, and that rattled everything. Then Adam Schefter from ESPN reported that the Packers are expected to try to work out an extension with Matt LaFleur in the coming days. He also reinforced that LaFleur has 1 year left on his deal and that both sides want clarity. When an insider uses that word, I take it like a flare in the night. Real talks are happening. Now connect the dots carefully. Right now, Flores has had limited real movement. There was an interview with Baltimore, and that's it. But if Green Bay, for any reason, ends up without a clear direction, they could decide to flip styles. We've lived a version of that story. The Vikings moved on from a defense-first head coach and hired an offense-first head coach. It worked for culture, it worked for the environment. But the rival could try the opposite lane. And the Bears, finding success with Ben Johnson inside the division, only cranks the pressure for a fast answer. To be honest with you, I cannot stomach Flores with that G on his chest. He's the brain of our recent identity. He built a tough defense. He adjusts mid-game like very few, and he's got the locker room's respect. That's gold you don't just replace. It's even more valuable when your offense is swinging. And here's the scary detail. If Green Bay decides to turn the page and bring in a defensive mastermind, Flores would be an obvious name. He's still got the hunger to prove he can be a head coach again, and he's young enough to do it. If the Packers front office starts thinking we need something totally different, he fits. But let's be real. Schefter also said they're trying to extend LaFleur, and that could slam the door shut fast. Until it's signed, though, the drama lives. And for anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football, it is infuriating because we know the impact. It's not just a departure, it's a direct hit to defend the North, like watching your rival walk off with your best tool. That's why this whole thing feels heavier. It stacks everything at once. Pressure on O'Connell, uncertainty at quarterback, coaches taking interviews, and now this Flores ghost with the rival. This isn't just today's chatter, it's a signal about where this team is right now. So I'm asking you straight, what do we do with all these signals hitting at the same time? Because there's a path choice here, and it's going to say a lot about who the Vikings are right now. Here's the uncomfortable truth, and it lands like a stiff wind off the Mississippi. The Vikings are at a point where they have to decide who they want to be when the calendar tightens. Because across all these stories, you're seeing the same snapshot from different angles. The talent is there, the culture is there, but the last step is still missing. The pressure on Kevin O'Connell isn't because he's bad, it's because he's good, and the bar keeps rising. The NFC North is turning into a heavyweight fight, and being behind in playoff wins is like hauling a tire through mud. Meanwhile, J.J. McCarthy is learning the hard way that quarterback life is living under a magnifying glass. Fines, gestures, body language, everything gets examined. You can love the guy one Sunday and doubt him the next. Then Anthony Richardson's name shows up as a possibility, and that's the front office staring into the mirror asking, do I need a plan B, or am I riding plan A all the way? And when the conversation jumps off the field and into the staff, it gets worse because Durante Jones getting interviews shows the rest of the league is trying to yank parts out of our defensive engine. And as if that wasn't enough, Brian Flores becoming a rival side rumor is the kind of thing that makes you want to slam the table. But that's the NFL. Blink once and somebody grabs what you built and does it smiling like a pickpocket in broad daylight. My bold claim is this: if Minnesota nails the quarterback decision and keeps the spine of the defense intact, this team becomes a real threat. That's not empty hype. The foundation is there. But if they misread it, we can fall into another cycle of almost again. And I've watched that rerun too many times. So I want to hear you. Drop your comment, because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. What would you do with McCarthy? Would you bring in competition? And on Flores and the staff, do you think the franchise can hold the line? Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings. Let's go.